When the office implements a disastrous policy, sometimes you just have to maliciously comply. We'll get into that in a bit, but first, tell you in front of your other customers and employees why I don't want you as a provider? Sure. This happened around 2012 and deals with my internet provider. They sucked majorly, days with no internet and no warnings. The last straw was when there was no internet for over 2 weeks. Called them and they said they would send someone to come look, but nope, no one came. Went to their branch office and one of the higher-ups finally put on his big boy undies and did some work. As an apology, they told me they'll only charge me the days I did have internet. It took 3 more days for me to have internet again. Then the bill came and it was higher than what I should be paying for. Went to the branch office the same day I got the bill. Before I could say my grievance, the employee told me I'd have to pay a penalty since I'll be late in paying, and that just made me blow my gasket. They wouldn't explain crap to me, so I told them I want them gone. I didn't want them as a provider anymore. I was there at 9 a.m. and done at 2 p.m. They really tried to get me to stay, but when they realized I was set in my decision, they finally complied. One of the things I had to do was call one of their reps or whoever to tell them my reasons for dropping them. The phones were by the entrance and waiting room. Went there and some assistant was watching me like I committed a horrible crime. Called them and that took me close to 10 minutes. When somebody finally answered, they asked me my list of problems with them. Not sure what for, they didn't really give a crap about them before. So proceeded to tell each and every freak up they did and the last straw. It was in front of waiting customers and those coming in. The assistant looked embarrassed and ready to murder me. It got way worse as several customers walked out after hearing me. When it was all over, even one of the managers was trying to guilt trip me for talking crap about them. Had to pay the bill and the penalty, but by then, they wanted me out quick. I got a better internet provider. I also had a last laugh when I lambasted them on Facebook. A lot of comments really laying on how awful they were. Honestly, I feel like this is one of the kinds of things that you need to do when you have such a bad experience with a company. The problem is most of the stuff comes through like Google reviews that people don't really look into too far. And even then, there's so many reviews that pop up on those sites that are like all lowercase, great, 5-star rating from Karen so-and-so. Let alone all the reviews on like the iOS or the Play Store that are all like, great, this app was excellent and provided all service accounted for. That is like so painfully botted and fake. It's nice to hear at least in the US the FTC is trying to crack down somehow on fake reviews. Living Rip 4333 commented, sounds like calm crap experience. Internet started dropping 10 times per hour. This went on for 2 months. I had texts out 4 times and they wanted to charge me for the 3rd and 4th visit. I kept getting the, it's your equipment, not ours excuse, even though at least 4 neighbors in our area had the same issue. The 3rd tech was amazing. 2nd tech said it was the house internal wiring, as the signal from their box to the house was perfect. The 3rd tech called BS on the 2nd guy and to prove it ran a new wire from their box to our house, straight to a new ComCrap router, completely bypassing anything in the house, still had issues. 4th visit, they wanted to charge me to have their tech come out and pick up their gear. I overheard multiple techs talk about how bad the system is in our neighborhood, and multiple pieces needed to be replaced in the neighborhood box and on the pole. I ended up getting 2 months of free service and dropped them the day Google Fiber was available. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy awesome malicious compliance stories, why not hit those like and subscribe buttons down below? That said, our next story is Just One More Song. So I just remembered this right now when listening to my music, rock music. I like Guns N' Roses, AC/DC, System of a Down, all those bands. So I was driving home from my in-laws and started my playlist. 2 songs in, my wife says she's gonna turn it off. She said, "How can you like this music? It's so loud and ugly, I'm gonna turn it off." I tell her, "No, wait, please, this is my music, let me be." She replies, No, I'm turning it off." I said, No, wait, cue puppy face. She says, okay, but just one more song." I said, "One?" She says, "One." "Okay, pinky promise." She says, "Pinky promise." We pinky promise. Cue malicious compliance. And as we finish shaking the pinky promise, I smile internally. So I skip to Through the Fire and Flames. For those who don't know, this song is 7 minutes long. 3 minutes in, I turn to see a confused look on her face. At 4 minutes starts the part with no lyrics, just guitars and drums. At this point, she looks ticked, but we never back down on pinky promises, so she says nothing. And at the 6-minute mark, when it looks like it's going to end, boom, lyrics come back. She says, "What? Are you kidding me? How long is this song?" I tell her, "Don't worry, honey, it's almost over." Finally, after 7 minutes, the song ends. Most satisfying 7 minutes of my life. That's what she said. Oh, but it gets better. Next week, same scenario, I put my music and 2 songs on again. She complains, "Again? I'm turning it off now." I say, wait, just one more song. She says, "Heck no, I ain't falling for that one again." I say, okay, just let me hear the first part of this next song's lyrics and we'll change it, okay? She replies, probably thinking, okay, maybe a minute at most and then it's over, saying, "Okay, just the first part." I reply, "Yeah, just the first part." I stretch my hand to pinky shake. "Pinky promise?" Annoyed, she replies, "Pinky promise?" And me, fully knowing what song comes next, can't avoid grinning. Cue Cliffs of Dover, which is only 4 minutes long, but at no point is there any lyrics sung. 2 minutes in, I turn to see my wife with an evil grin. She says, "This one doesn't have lyrics, does it?" I reply, "Nope." So OP has to be an incredible fan of Guitar Hero 3 Legends of Rock, right? As soon as OP said "Through the Fire and Flames," I'm just thinking about the torture it is to play that 7-minute song on Guitar Hero, trying to strum those continuous notes. And then OP goes on to mention my favorite song from Guitar Hero 3, which is Cliffs of Dover, which is a wordless song, but it's just so satisfying to play all those melodies and riffs. Tim Martin commented, "If you really want to mess with her, Alice's Restaurant by Arlo Guthrie is close to 20 minutes of a story/song. If your relationship survives this, you guys can handle anything." Our next story is, "Wanna ground me? Fine. Deal with the consequences." This happened a while ago. At that time, I was currently 13 to 14 years old, I think. I was on a family vacation with my best friend. In this trip, we were supposed to stay 5 days in the lake and then come back home. My mom is, most of the time, a major jerk, so I wasn't surprised when she started having a bad attitude with me. After being 3 days on this trip, I was exhausted, I'd spent all day on the lake and was really tired. All I wanted to do was lay down in the camping tent and sleep the day away. My mom decided that this was a great time to ask me for help. She wanted me to carry my brother to the lake, bathe him, and bring him back to her. He was around a year old or so. Obviously, I was so out of myself that I told her no and that she could do it herself. There was around a 10-minute walk to the lake. She started screaming at me as to how bad of a sister and child I must be because I never helped her and yada yada. Then after screaming at me for half an hour, she asked me if now I was ready to help her. I responded no again, and that she hadn't gone out to the van all day and that she must have been filled with enough energy to do it. Then she goes to scream at my dad to pack things up, take away my phone from me, and that I was grounded till she said so. Also, she made me go alone with her in the car ride. We went with 2 cars because we didn't fit, and proceeded to lecture me the 2 hours back home about respect, how I should behave, that I should help around more in the house and to have more family time, and also that I could be doing other things and to get a hobby because for her, I was apparently all day on my phone. Cue to the malicious compliance, I decided that if she wanted all that, then I could manage. We arrived home at around 11 p.m. and she went to sleep at 3 a.m. for some reason. At 9 a.m., I was up and decided that my new hobby was to play the flute at first thing in the morning. I proceeded to play the flute so bad and loud that my brother started crying. I was playing the flute in the yard and they were in their room, all the way across in the house with their windows closed. She couldn't tell me anything because when she came to the yard to tell me off, I was so polite and gave perfect reason that I was far and I was getting a new hobby as she had told me. The house stayed squeaky clean for 2 weeks, but every day I made a point to go to sleep before everyone so that every day I woke up a little bit earlier and ready to blast my flute each day for around an hour till I couldn't bear it anymore. I think I even reached playing the flute at 5 a.m. By the end of 2 weeks, the punishment wasn't over, but I was slowly driving my mom insane by messing with her sleep schedule, and I knew that. I also started lecturing my parents because they didn't have proper manners and they couldn't tell me nothing because they knew I was right. I spend all the day stuck to either my mom or dad and talked their ear off and made everyone watch those horrible educational films no one likes. Made them participate in family bonding time like making cookies. Proceeded to leave as much of a mess as I could, and when they told me to clean it, sorry, but I've already cleaned the house today. Could you do it? I was eating their brains, their sanity, and their free time, either by nagging them or by cautiously waking my brother up but doing it in a quiet way so that they wouldn't find out and having them to deal with a baby all day long. The last day, around 2 weeks and a half, my mom was so fed up that she gave me the phone back. It's been around 2 or 3 years since then, and I haven't been grounded since then. I certainly hope for OP's sake that they had a wide berth to the nearest neighbor, because getting up at 5 a.m. and playing the flute in the yard, you're not only upsetting and waking up your parents and your siblings, but if there's any neighbors nearby, I'm sure they despise you. That said, I would have loved to see the parents actually double down and turn around and say, OP, we got you some flute lessons, go over to your flute tutor. Zombie Chocolate commented, I was the type of kid who on breaks left the house at 8 a.m. and came back at 8 p.m., was biking or just exploring with friends. For some reason, my dad grounded me for 2 weeks. Don't remember why. I could not use my toys like my toy cars, Hot Wheels, Lego, etc. So out of spite, I started to read. My dad loved reading and had a bunch of books. I first read Call of the Wild and then a bunch of other books and then even more. I went up to 2 to 3 shorter books a day and then started to read the longer, heavier books like from Victor Hugo and Stendhal. Mind you, I was like 12. I had a ton of fun. My dad was seething but was freaking impressed at the same time. We discussed a lot of the books as they usually were out of my league, but it became an actual bonding experience, with dad suggesting titles and me discussing them with him when done. Although this wasn't as petty as OP's, but I guess it was much wholesome. Dad didn't want to forbid the reading because previously I hated reading, and you couldn't catch me with a book. Our next story is schedule a meeting at 12 a.m. I've been working as a lead in an IT firm from India that supports a US client. I have a manager here in India who approves my PTO, handles performance reviews, and meets with us a few times a month. His and the management's view is that the work we do is for the client, but we should also contribute to the organization. So we're encouraged to take up additional tasks like recruiting or preparing business reviews. Essentially, we need to be available during the day. I also have another manager in the USA who's Indian as well. He coordinates with the customer and handles any escalations related to our work. His main concern is ensuring there are 0 escalations from the client. The clients assign us projects and we interact with them directly. We have meetings every day, usually lasting at least 2 hours. Since we're paid a monthly salary, there's no extra money for additional hours worked. Both managers take advantage of this. There are no strict working hours, but we must be available from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. IST, which corresponds to 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. US time. Typically, we start working at 10 a.m., continue until 5 p.m., and then resume from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. Sometimes, meetings with clients extend an extra 30 minutes to an hour. Our US manager connects with us after the meetings with client. One day, I had a lot of work to finish and decided to work from home instead of commuting. I had a 3-hour client meeting followed by a knowledge transition session, so I was fully occupied. The on-site manager asked me to schedule a meeting with him. I told him my day was packed till midnight. He refused and said he needed 30 minutes of my time. I asked if he could join a little earlier before my meetings, but he said no. Then I asked, is 12 a.m. fine for him? He said yes and scheduled the meeting at 12 a.m. All happened over Teams chat. I decided to take his own words against him, so I scheduled the meeting for 12 a.m. his time, which was 10 a.m. the next day for me, thinking, if you expect me to be available at midnight, why not you? That was the last time he expected me to be available post-midnight. I mean, I get it. It would be a little bit more convenient if during some kind of working hours OP would be available, but you gotta be humane. Induru commented, I'm in a country where the work week is Sunday to Thursday, so Friday and Saturday are the weekend. Whenever someone from another country, usually the USA, would try to schedule a meeting for Friday, I would decline with a note. Friday is no good for me, how about Sunday? Our next story is advice from malicious compliance. Hello, I work a state job and have been there 3 years and have not had any work compliant against me, and have never been told my work wasn't up to standards until recently. The change started after a coworker quit. We're a small department of 3 people, and when they left, a lot of work was placed on myself and the lead. Before the coworker quit, we had discussions about how the lead never communicated, logged on late, unfairly left work for us that she had more than enough time to do, showed up 2 to 3 hours late without letting anyone know. The 4 days she worked from home, we could never get her to answer her phone, as well as she never cleared out her designated inbox for the day, or only started clearing it around 1 p.m. Before coworker quit, I was working 3 days from home, 2 days in office. Coworker worked 3 days from home, 2 days in office. And lead worked 4 days from home, 1 day in office. Once coworker quit, it became I worked 2 days from home and 3 days in office, and lead worked 3 days from home, 2 days in office, which I didn't mind seeing that we were short-staffed, but I have a neurological disability with BVD, and it's established with HR now. Before coworker quit, I met with my supervisor and COO and discussed my ADA needs and was told, okay, we'll work with it, and if I need breaks or to leave early, I can do so with just an email or verbal communication needed. My direct supervisor told me he doesn't need to monitor me and that as long as my work gets done, he doesn't mind. For 3 months after coworker quit, I was pushing myself to be at work because it was needed. I worked days that I should have taken off, I worked longer hours and did my best to make sure I wasn't a burden and to be a team player. I worked from home while having food poisoning and throwing up. The lead had weeks of time off during this, so it was often just me working. My supervisor couldn't help because he didn't know what we did. No one in the company really knows how or what we do enough to do our jobs. So we were never really monitored or checked with our work, we were just trusted to do our jobs. Now, because of my disability, it's easier to work from home. I do not do well being up and about a lot. I only put up with working more on office days because I was led to believe once we hired new people while they trained, I would be working from home since there would be no need for all 4 of us in the office. And once they were ready to work from home, I would go back to my regular schedule. Well, we finally hired 2 more people, and I asked the lead if I can go back to my regular schedule / work from home for the time being. She emailed me saying she couldn't change the amount of days I worked in the office and that the COO had to approve it. Which was weird, but whatever, I'll do it. I scheduled a meeting with the COO to discuss my schedule, and at this point the COO told me she couldn't let me go back to my schedule because the supervisor said my productivity was better in office, and that they didn't want it to look like favoritism, so I needed to submit ADA paperwork so they can say this is why I need my schedule changed. It wasn't needed before, but whatever, I'll go through the process. While waiting for my ADA forms to get approved, I scheduled a meeting with my supervisor since my productivity was not up to standard and I'd never heard of that complaint before I talked with the COO. The supervisor admitted to just going off on what the lead said about me and that he had no problem with my work. And again, he didn't care as long as the work was done. The supervisor requested I wait to work from home for another month so I can get to know the new hires and be there to help. Fine. I can do that, it's not an unreasonable ask for me, I understand where the point comes from. I waited for a month and continued working more in office. By that time, my ADA paperwork finally went through and was approved, and with the new month starting, I again asked about going back to my regular schedule. My supervisor scheduled a meeting with myself and the lead to discuss my schedule change. During this meeting, it was brought up that the lead and new hires felt I was being treated with favoritism. Unfortunately, I had a lot more, oh well, just see how it goes rules with the COO and not actually written down rules. With the COO, they gave me more leeway and that my work was getting done, so it wasn't a problem. Now that 2 complaints were against me, they needed to start tracking work from home and that I needed to document more of when I took breaks and communicate more when I come back, so we established actual rules for working from home. Which, fine. Whatever, we needed rules anyway. Before this, I have never mentioned the lead's lack of work, lack of time management, and dumping work on me. I overcompensated and made sure I did my part to keep the department running since it's in healthcare. All I wanted was to go back to my regular schedule, and I was willing to overlook the crappy months and go forward with my life. However, with the span of 2 complaints in less than a month, I am done. I can't keep overworking myself just to be treated like this. The 2 new hires are even a tier above me, which is a higher pay grade scale. Being salaried, I have a cap at how much I make, and another tier just changes the pay range I can go up to. I've been here for 3 years, I've done my time, and not once has anything good been brought up about me, and I can't let this slide anymore. I never brought up anything because it's petty and stupid and it wasn't worth the headache, but now both of the complaints were brought up with the COO directly, not through my supervisor, so after considering this, I am finally ready to maliciously comply. Does anyone know how I can make this effective? Our new work from home rules are that I communicate my breaks and everything through our team chat. But at this moment, I'm feeling singled out and I feel like this should be a rule for everyone in our department. The lead and new hires spend a lot of time just talking and doing personal matters on the clock while doing little to no work. But because there's 4 of us now, there isn't much work to do. I've already asked for more work since I'm apparently not productive with my time. Does anyone have any advice on how to handle this and how I can protect myself without it seeming like just because these complaints have been brought up that I'm now pointing fingers at everyone else? Usually, I think the go-to in situations like this that I've seen is try to just be as annoying about it as possible. If you have to document whenever you take a break and whenever you come back, make sure you do that all the time. Maybe increase the visibility, maybe create a group chat that has unnecessarily more of higher management, so everybody has to get these pings and say, oops, sorry, I'm just trying to make sure it's all documented. Effective Hour 8642 suggests, no, if you have to do it, everyone has to do it. Then you get really detailed. 8:15, I had to go pee and replace the toilet paper. 8:37, got a cup of coffee with cream from the fridge. 9:15 to 9:30, break. I don't need to tell you on my mandated break. 11:30 to 12, lunch. I don't need to tell you what I do during my lunch. 1:12, I had to go pee again. You get the idea. If you have to tell them, they also have to do the same. Best wishes. Our next story is, you're never too young to do malicious compliance. I was cutting bread and remembered this bit of malicious compliance from my youth in Argentina. I have a couple cousins whose grandpa, not mine, on the other side of the family, used to be the town baker when I was like 5 or 6. Picture a small town with the town's bakery kind of place. Bakery includes a chicken coop for eggs, Grandpa Baker's house, a huge oven and prepping area, storage room with piles of flour, sacks as high as mountains, a well for the water, a pantry, the office, and the bakery itself. Huge place, probably more than 100 meters long and 50 meters wide. For me and my bigger cousin, about my age, being let loose there is like the ultimate playground. We can climb mountains of flour sacks, we can try to catch chickens, we can run from the store to the back, but the biggest thing ever, there are a lot of amazing baked goods to eat. So much so that they have to close the store during Grandpa Baker's nap time because we sneak in and rampage. Grandpa Baker works night shifts until like 10 to 11 a.m., so he's out cold until 5 to 6 p.m. every day also. Both my cousin and I had, then, baby brothers, so our moms couldn't be on top of ourselves all day. The rampaging keeps getting out of hand, so Grandpa Baker calls cousin and me and says, look, while I'm taking a nap, you can't have any baked goods or anything the store sells. Am I clear? Yes, Grandpa Baker. If you've ever been to Argentina, you probably know what a dulce de leche is. To Argentinians, it is probably the most delicious thing ever. Think peanut butter or chocolate spread, but 10 times better. And it's not a baked good. And the store doesn't sell it, but the pantry is full of it because it is used in baked goods. Think croissant with dulce de leche inside. You know where this is going, right? Wooden spoon in hand, the kind you use to stir a stew. Cousin and I sneak into the pantry and probably eat something like half a kilo or more of dulce de leche each. Malicious compliance and a huge stomachache later on. Never tasted so good. I mean, ultimately I think they do end up selling that stuff even if it's in the form of an ingredient. I don't know if these kids are going to be able to win this technicality. I know kids are usually ingenious and get away with a lot of technicalities, but I don't know about this one. Ancient Dependent 59 commented, my mom told us that her mom used to make it when she was a kid in the Depression. Mom got so excited telling us about it that she had to show us right then. She was visiting during Thanksgiving and occupied a whole burner on the stove while Chef Husband was making T-Day dinner. The caramel was delicious, but ever after, Husband referred to his mother-in-law as the old can boiler. Our next story is the double-sided policy disaster. I work in a small office, and like a lot of companies, we've got that one manager who's obsessed with cutting costs. Ours is Mark. Mark wasn't a bad guy, but he had this laser focus on reducing expenses, no matter how small. One of his biggest obsessions was paper. He was convinced that we were blowing our budget on printing, so he implemented a new policy. Everything had to be double-sided. It wasn't a suggestion, it was a hard rule. Mark sent an email to everyone in the office, CCing HR to make it official. From this point forward, all printing must be double-sided, no exceptions. If we catch unnecessary single-sided printing, there will be consequences. Most of us didn't see it as a big deal for internal documents, but there were times it was a problem. We regularly worked with contracts, legal forms, and client documents, things that, for whatever reason, often had to be single-sided. A few of us raised concerns about this with Mark, but his response was always the same. Rules are rules, double-sided saves us money, stick to the policy. Now, here's where the compliance comes in. A couple of weeks later, we got a massive contract from one of our biggest clients. Let's call them Green Tech. The deal was huge, easily one of the biggest projects we'd handled all year, and it came with a lot of paperwork. The instructions from Green Tech were crystal clear. The contract had to be printed single-sided to meet their legal department standards. I figured this might be one of those rare cases where Mark would make an exception, so I went to him, explained the situation, and showed him the client's instructions. Mark just shrugged and said, "Company policy is company policy. We're not wasting paper. Double-sided." At this point, I knew where this was headed, but fine. I followed the rules. I printed the entire 80-page contract double-sided and sent it off to the client. A couple of days later, we get an email from Green Tech. They weren't pleased. In fact, they were asking us to reprint the whole thing, single-sided this time, or they would reconsider doing business with us. When I showed the email to Mark, his face turned red. He had no choice but to backtrack and scramble to fix the mess. We ended up having to reprint the entire contract correctly and rush ship it to Green Tech overnight, which ended up costing us more in fees than the printing savings Mark had been so focused on. The best part? After that fiasco, Mark quietly rolled back the no exceptions rule for double-sided printing, and we were all allowed to use our judgment on a case-by-case basis. Funny how a little compliance with bad policies can show why they don't work in practice. If you have a client and the client says, "We want this contract printed single-sided," especially when it's a request from their legal department, you would think most people in management would have the common sense to go, "Okay, you know what? I know we usually do double-sided, but yeah, this time, let's just do single-sided to comply with their legal department." I mean, especially when it's just an exception for this one 80-page job, how much in printing fees do you actually lose? 3am Green Coffee commented, "Similar theme, but no malicious compliance. My job involves reviewing a certain type of legal file in client offices. When I arrived at one such office, the manager was very proud of their new paperless document storage. She explained that 6 months earlier, they had contracted with an outside company to scan their paper files and provide secure digital access to them in PDF. She sat me down in front of one of their computers and showed it off. So I was sitting there trying to verify signatures on documents as part of my review, when I realized that most of these documents were missing the even-numbered pages. I called her in and say, "Got a question for you. Are all your documents printed double-sided?" "Oh, of course," she said. "I instituted that policy to save money on paper." I said, "Well, were you aware that your scanning company is only scanning your files simplex?" She went pale. No, I didn't know that." I said, "Yep. All these documents I'm reviewing are missing all the even-numbered pages, so I'm not able to see everything I need. Some of the signature pages are missing on these contracts." But it got worse. Some sections of the PDFs were complete gibberish that had nothing to do with the files in which they were included. "What is this?" I asked, pointing to some copy that was marked through with lines and scribbled on. She went even whiter. "Oh my God," she said. "If people do print single-sided, they have to put those pages in a box next to the copier. We reuse that paper to print on the other side." In other words, in the situations where they had printed single-sided, the scanning company had scanned the wrong side of each page. Okay, then I'm going to need your physical files to be able to verify the signatures on these documents, I said. She went translucent and looked like she was about to be sick. We don't have the physical files. The scanning company shreds them when they're done. Well, now that's a problem, I said, and it was a big one. They had not only destroyed pages and pages of the last 6 months of their work, but the scan and shred company had also started digitally archiving their file storage warehouse. They were up into thousands of files that had been scanned improperly and destroyed. I wasn't involved in the follow-up and don't know what the actual fallout from that was, but I think I watched a woman's career go through the shredder that day as well. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely crazy malicious compliance story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.